is that if you want to have a really good team, you got to have a bunch of really good teammates.
And welcome to another edition of Coach's Corner. Thank you for joining us tonight on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, Twitter. If you have any questions, I encourage you to just type them up. I'll put my grand old lady reading glasses on. I'll make sure that Coach Bakich gets to answer your questions. Joining me tonight is the Clemson University head baseball coach, Erik Bakich. Kind of been around Erik since 2008 when my youngest son, Tyler, was in the 8th grade. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But welcome aboard, Coach Bakich. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me, Walter. Great to connect with you again.
Well, I first want to let you know that I've probably had, I think this is my 8th week now, and probably never in any of those previous weeks have I had as many questions submitted. So you're a popular guy. I think a lot of people are following you from Michigan over to the ACC. So I'll get those questions asked. Don't worry, parents, we'll get that done. Want to make sure that everybody understands when your questions come in, if I get the same question, I'll paraphrase it, because I want to be respectful of our coach's time here this evening. The first thing I want to let everybody know, and Erik, I want to kind of start here. In today's world, we have a lot of parents that are worried about, when their son should start hearing from college coaches, recruiting. And I've been telling this story for, I guess, a decade now. You wrote a report for Tyler when he was in the 8th grade that turned out, pretty much to be spot on as far as where he ended up. So can you talk about when you and your staff are out and you're not really actively recruiting, but you're identifying, does that kind of start entering that freshman year in high school, and then there's a following process of a student athlete throughout those first few years of high school?
Yeah, absolutely, Walter. In Tyler's particular case, he was one of the youngest kids at that particular showcase event. And at that particular event, all the coaches got evaluations that we were in charge of writing. And I happened to get Tyler, who was, I want to say, the youngest kid at the event, because typically, we're not paying attention really to junior high kids. I guess now in today's age, maybe that's happening a little bit more when those kids go to college camps. But anyways, it's never too early to identify a kid. There's no harm in identifying a kid that you would want to follow, keep your eye on, and maybe down the road, once he gets into high school, enters into his freshman year, then maybe consider making an offer or at least taking a closer look. But I think of college coaches, at that young age, you're just looking for something that stands out, something that maybe is uncommon. So it could be a kid who's tall and lean and lanky and just needs to fill out. It could be a kid that already has some arm strength or already has some pop in the bat or already has, really good speed or really good defensive action. So I think for a kid to get noticed at a young age, he's probably got to be an outlier among his peers. For a college coach, at least, to take notice. If the kid's not even in high school yet, but speaking to a bigger picture, it's not a race, and everybody's, going at their own speed. And I know that there's a lot of intrigue and excitement to want to make that decision early, but would want to remind all the players and all the parents that this is the biggest decision of the kid's life up to this point. So it's got to be the right one. And the way you make good decisions is you get a lot of information, and that always includes meeting people face to face, shaking their hand, looking them in the eye, setting foot on that campus, walking around, and just trying to be a little bit more thoughtful and intentional with this decision, because this is a life decision.
And I hope parents understand that dynamic as far as there's an evaluation, then there's a follow, then there's a recruiting. There's a lot of different pieces there. And sometimes I think parents need to hear that. Erik, I want to ask you personally, you leave Vanderbilt, you go to Maryland to Michigan. Can you kind of talk about your evolution as a college coach and some of the things that you've learned along the way to becoming now the head coach at Clemson? What might be a little bit different, and what are you taking, from, say, Michigan over to Clemson?
Yeah, well, it always comes down to the people you surround yourself with, and that would be, one of the first pieces of advice to some of these young kids listening is surround yourself with good people. And I feel like I just personally got very lucky being surrounded by some awesome people that was able to take a lot of good tips, advice, and life changing, career trajectory altering pieces of advice and tips. And so, it started just by getting out of my comfort zone, leaving the state of California and playing ball out at East Carolina, and getting connected with Coach Keith LeClaire, the late and great Coach Keith LeClaire, and just understanding that dynamic of taking people from different parts and building that inner circle of a team and getting them, motivating them to feel like they could do anything. And that was one of Coach LeClaire's superpowers, was the ability to really take a group of guys from all different backgrounds and be able to make them feel like they were 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and just that power of having a confident mind. That was always a big takeaway. And then he set me up with the opportunity to become a coach with Coach Jack Leggett here at Clemson 20 years ago as the volunteer coach. And that's really where I felt like that was the reason I went to East Carolina. It wasn't to be necessarily a player. It was at the time, but it was to be a part of the Jack Leggett coaching tree that Keith LeClaire was a very strong branch on. And Coach Leggett is the epitome of relentless positive energy and fundamentals and discipline. And so there was a lot of takeaways with him and the staff that he had assembled. I was just the low man on the totem pole as the volunteer coach, and sharing an office with Tim Corbin and Kevin O'Sullivan. You talk about
Wow.
getting lucky and being in the right place at the right time. And then Coach Corbin going to Vanderbilt and asking me to go with him. And, for 7 years at Vanderbilt, learning under Coach Corbin, learning how to recruit, learning the importance of attention to detail and being super organized and follow up, and just shifting the target off of maybe the stats and the results and the outcome, and putting it on developing the total person and developing the character of the kid and those life skills that last so much longer than the ability to play baseball. And from there, got the opportunity to go be a head coach in all those areas, all those different environments. At Maryland in the ACC we were one of the have-nots at that time. Didn't have the facilities, didn't have the budget, had to get very creative. At Michigan, had to be very creative with the weather and very efficient with our time, and very creative with indoor spaces. So you learn, you grow, and you just, there's no finish line when you're on that journey and that path of growth and improvement and always wanting to get better. And so it's just taking all of that and then applying it here to Clemson and still trying to learn and grow.
Well, I think one of the greatest tributes, we talk about Ron Frazier. He was the kind of the creator of the marketing of college baseball, Cliff Gustafson, and you got Augie Garrido. But Jack Leggett, from my perspective, was probably, he's a Vermont guy, and Tim was a Wolfsboro, New Hampshire guy, but he gave hope to for the guys that are in these cold weather states, particularly in the Northeast, that they could capture the attention of a Clemson University or somewhere in that warmer climate. And, I remember a guy that was recruited, Mike Paradise, who I was coaching at Auburn High School, went down to Clemson. But my first question, that came in, or a lot of the similar questions, is, hey, we're up here in the Northeast, and we're up here in the, the kind of the Mid-Atlantic area. How do we get Coach Bakich to know who we are, and how do we kind of get on his radar during the summer?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I always answer that with a fishing analogy, right? And we all like to fish, or at least most people in baseball like to fish. And the answer is, most college coaches, they're not going to an obscure location to see one player play in his Legion ball game or a high school game or whatever. Their time is very valuable. It's limited with the opportunities to go out and recruit. So I would answer that by saying most college coaches gravitate towards the bigger tournaments where there's the lot of fish in the lake, so to speak, and they can see a lot of players in one place, whether that's a perfect game or a PBR or a national showcase, something that where there's going to be a lot of players, and they know that their time is going to be very good use of their time.
And the other follow up to that is, as a staff at Clemson, where is the high school student athlete with regard to your recruiting class? Is it an integral part? Is it the majority, or is it become kind of get scaled back? With JUCO and transfer portal, and maybe even some postgraduate athletes.
Sure. Yeah. No, we definitely, and I think most major programs still fall into this category as well, that they're going to build their program with the high school player, just because you have the most time and opportunities to help that player develop, not just as a ball player, but becoming a man and who he's going to be, and help shape him into the person he's going to be. So I think most coaches still gravitate to that. But to kind of expound upon that question, we personally will supplement our roster more if we need to go the transfer route. It used to be pre-COVID, we would get a JUCO, a junior college guy. That before COVID, the transfer portal wasn't really a thing. People could transfer, but they'd have to sit out a year. So now, that people can transfer without having to sit, it's become much more prevalent. We probably haven't really dove into that yet. The transfers we've gotten have been more the grad transfer. I personally gravitate to the grad transfer more than the regular 4-year transfer, just simply because not really a big fan of the grass is greener over here kind of mentality. And I like the grad transfer because that guy usually has a chip on his shoulder, for a couple reasons. One, he's a grad transfer, so he didn't get drafted. He's back in school. He's got his extra year of eligibility. But number two, it's his last shot at college baseball, and he wants to be a part of a winner and wants to go out on top. And so, we've had a lot of success with grad transfers the last few years, and been fortunate to get some good ones inside of our programs. But the short of it is that high school players still have to be the foundation of building a program. If you're into building a program, and most schools are in that bucket. Some schools are more transactional. They're more the revolving door, bring a bunch of guys in, cut guys and bring a bunch of transfers in. And, there's some that do that and have success doing it. But I'd say most people don't.
Well, I want to kind of take a quick right here, and I want to ask you a question that most times does not get asked enough, in my opinion. Now, I've talked to Cliff Godwin at East Carolina. I've talked to him at length about Coach LeClaire. You bring up Coach LeClaire. I bring up Coach Corbin. Tim is a big proponent, as I know you are. I want you to kind of take a parent into your understanding. This is so much more. College athletics is so much more than just being an athlete. You're talking about developing future fathers and spouses, members of community, members of church, etc. Talk about that from a culture standpoint. Coach LeClaire, that was a big deal. You can hear it in your discussions as you talk, and also with Cliff. Can you explain to parents why it's just not about baseball? We're not worried about the big leagues or professional baseball. We're worried about Clemson University, but there's so much more to being a college athlete. And I'd love for you to share that with parents.
Well, sure. Not to get too long-winded here, the very short answer is, I think you never have everything figured out as a coach, but the one thing that maybe we have figured out is that if you want to have a really good team, you got to have a bunch of really good teammates. And in today's world, this generation of kid is, they're the most photographed generation, we've ever seen on God's green earth. And it serves a purpose from a recruiting standpoint. because they got to get their information out there. They got to post their videos. They got to, they want exposure. They want to get seen. And I get it. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. You, as a parent or as a kid, you have to do it. The unintended consequence of it, though, is that it puts this target right here. And the unintended consequence is it creates a very self-centered adolescent male. And then as a college coach, preaching some of those bigger principles that you just mentioned, of being a future husband, of being a future father, of being a future community leader, the number one team killer, regardless of what team you're on, whether it's a team of business leaders, whether it's a team under your own roof and a family dynamic with you, your wife, and your kids, or a sports team, the number one team killer, selfish behaviors. And so it's just getting that target off of the individual and putting it onto the guy to the left and the guy to your right, and just understanding that if we're truly teaching leadership, then we have to be talking about serving others, because serving is leading, leading is serving. And it's just something that maybe is a little bit uncommon, not talked about in most college programs. But the one that Tyler played in, and the guy that I learned from, that Tyler learned from as well, Coach Corbin, is a huge proponent of this. And it's just something we've always carried through to our programs at Michigan, and now certainly at Clemson as well. But just shifting that target off of the individual, putting it on other people, having some humility and some character traits that, putting the target on that instead of just the results and the stats. It's amazing how the results and the stats and the scoreboard just take care of themselves.
Amen. The we versus the me. And, oftentimes when in private conversations, I'll talk with coaches at all levels, and the first thing they tell me is I spend more time teaching my freshmen or younger student athletes about becoming a part of a team and roles and so forth than I do about skill set. I have a question from a young man, and this has kind of probably been the number one asked question from a student athlete's perspective all week. How do you, as a coach or coaching staff, what do you require of your incoming freshman student athletes? Do you prefer them to get into summer school and kind of immerse themselves into your strength programs and your protocols, or do you want them to play, whether it's in the Futures League or some type of competitive summer schedule, or would you rather them show up in the fall and be fresh and prepared to compete as members of the Clemson Tiger program?
So that totally depends on the institution and the opportunities that institution provides. Clemson, every incoming player comes to summer school, and we actually provide a full scholarship in the summer to where they can take 6 credits and get acclimated into our strength program and help the transition very smoothly. Other places, it's only an academic requirement, where if you need to do it as a bridge from high school to your enrollment and your matriculation into the school. That's how it was at Michigan. It was a requirement if you needed to do it from an academic standpoint. And then other schools don't offer it or don't require it. I think it's a great opportunity to just get adjusted, because it's a big transition. School's harder, baseball's harder. You're away from home for the first time. You've got a new network of a friend group, and a social scene, and everything just speeds up. And if you've got some repetitions on that campus where you already know where the buildings are, and you already know where the food is, and you already have a good feel for what the weight training is going to be like, I think they're all positives, and would highly recommend doing that if it's an opportunity to do it between senior year and freshman year.
Okay, the college student, the high school student athletes that are asking me these questions, I want to talk Clemson University. Don't want to talk about anything else prior to Clemson. Just want to talk about Clemson. Student athletes, do you want to interact with them on social media? Do you want to hashtag Clemson baseball? Do you want the videos to come to the email, to your staff, yourself and your staff? What is it that Clemson is looking for from student athletes, and what should student athletes be sending you if they want to become a future Clemson Tiger?
Sure. I think all of that is an opportunity to gain exposure for the kid, personally, I got off of social media during that whole COVID time in 2020. Um, I just it didn't personally bring me any joy. I find myself scrolling through Twitter, just getting PO'd, and I finally just said that, the heck with this. I'm out of here. Everything turned political, and I haven't got back on. I'm off of everything. But from a recruiting standpoint, it serves a very good purpose. And so I would tell my advice to every high school kid that wants to get noticed and wants to send a video or a social media post, to lead with the thing that you do the best. So in other words, we get 50 plus emails a day from aspiring young recruits, and these long emails that just don't get read. If it's this gigantic essay, it's just, most of the time the email gets forwarded to someone else on staff who maybe sends a camp invite or whatever. So I would say try to stand out either in the subject line or the first sentence of your email. Pick the thing that you do best, whether you're 6'3" or you throw 90 or you run a 6'8" 60 or you do something really good or you play for a big time organization, and just lead with that. Try to be an attention grabber, a headline that just is going to, maybe get people to click that link or read a little bit further. And just know that the email world is just so watered down. A lot of coaches just don't have time to read all those emails all day long. It's just so much easier to forward them on. But the ones I find myself reading are the ones that grab my attention right away in the first line.
Could I ask if a student athlete were to send you a 90-second video and it said something to the effect, "Dear Coach Bakich, my name is Tyler Beede. I'm currently a sophomore at Lawrence Academy. I'm 6'3". I'm 185 pounds. I feel that Clemson University offers me the opportunity to become not only a better student, but as well as provide an opportunity to help Clemson get to Omaha, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." Would that not stand out in your opinion?
Yeah, the shorter the better. It's like a sizzle reel, and if you can do it in 30 seconds, that's even better. But something that just bam, like, fireworks right away. Just go to the finale instead of the build up. We know you want to help the team win and get to, got it. Tell us what you do. You just get right to it, and then the academic piece is huge. And I would tell all the kids, there's no downside to being a great student. And the better the student you are, the more opportunities not only you open up for yourself for the caliber of schools on the spectrum, from the elite schools to anyone else, but the more opportunity you open up for yourself financially as well to gain some academic money. Because as of today, the world is still 11.7 scholarships for the entire roster. We have some, some schools have need-based financial aid. Some schools have academic-based merit. Some schools have, great NIL opportunities, but we're still, from a baseball scholarship standpoint, still at 11.7. And so if you can maybe do so well academically that you can help subsidize the cost of attendance, I would absolutely do that. And that's maybe a bullet point in the email. But sometimes we get these long emails and the first paragraph is all about the academics. And I would recommend to the kids, just, again, lead with the headliner, the thing you do the best from a baseball standpoint, but a bullet point in there. Make sure if you're just putting the superlatives of you, make sure you put the grades in there too, because that's the easiest way to get crossed off a list. Is if you don't have any grades, it's not only may the school not be able to get you admitted, but it's a red flag to a coach who thinks you're not motivated in the classroom, and that may trickle over onto the baseball field.
And that is a bullet point indeed. For instance, if you are a great pitcher, but you're a 2.3 and we have a 19 ACT, et cetera, that's going to kind of hurt some things. It might be an anchor. So on that subject, Coach, can you tell me, Erik, do you think the scholarship issue will be changed within the next 3 years?
I do. I think one of two things is going to happen. We're either going to get some relief to the 11.7 or the restrictions on NIL, which, depending on what state you live in, kind of dictate, what your institutions in those states can do from an NIL standpoint. And NIL, for all the kids that don't know, it's name, image, and likeness. It's a way to participate in a collective or get additional money for college baseball coaches. Everyone hears NIL and they think pay for play, and it sounds a little bit slimy and below the line. I think if this pen was a magic wand and I could just wave the magic wand, it would be to kind of erase the what college baseball for a long time has been synonymous with student loan debt. And if you played college baseball, you took out student loans. And I think if you could wave the magic wand, it would be to use NIL to subsidize your cost of attendance for all your families, so that every kid on your roster could choose the school that they wanted to choose based on where they wanted to go, not because another school offered them a few more $1,000s. So it would be great to have NIL be the vehicle that got us to be more like a head count sport, like a football or basketball, instead of an equivalency sport, which we are right now, dealing with small percentages, 25%, 30%, 50% scholarships. I do think, Walter, that it's all going to improve in time. It feels like that's the direction that everything is heading, is to benefit the student athlete. It just can't get here fast enough.
Amen to that. Super conferences, yes or no? You think they're coming, or is there going to be any changes with alignment with regard to Division I baseball?
I don't know. It feels like it's all about football and TV money. And, I guess that it'll all be predicated on football and how those TV deals are structured. But possibly, yeah. I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but it feels like restructuring of conferences is not finished.
Okay, I got two more questions, lightning round. All things being equal, if a player can do a lot of things well, i.e. switch hit, pitch, play, position, when should they decide, or when do you decide as a college coach that they're not going to switch hit or they're not going to pitch and play a position? Is that something that you would recommend they do in high school, make the decision, or just show up on a college campus and let the coaching staff decide?
I think you do both as long as you possibly can. This is one of those games where, you're just the opinion of somebody else, right? Whether it's the major league level all the way down to, who's making out the lineup in high school. And so, what may be somebody's idea, somebody says, at one level, hey, you shouldn't switch hit anymore. And then you get to the next coach and he says, hey, you should switch hit. So I wouldn't make that decision. I wouldn't stop doing something if you're good at it until you have to. Once you go up a level, like high school to college, you better be really, really talented in both areas naturally to be able to do both. Just because you only have so many hours in the day, along with your academic and just your total calendar and schedule. So it becomes much harder to balance both once you get to this level. But we've had plenty of guys who have done it over the years. And if the guy can do it, we totally welcome it, encourage it, think it's great. You got to be really, really good in both.
Okay, here's the final question. I'm going to kind of split it in half. Get a lot of parents that are told that there's no college recruiting during high school season, that you never go to a high school game. And then on top of that, do you talk to high school coaches as well as travel ball coaches? Do you prefer one over another? I kind of know the answer to this, but the first half of that is, does anybody at Clemson ever go see a high school baseball game? And if they do they communicate with high school coaches equal to, less than, more than travel ball coaches?
So the answer is yes to all of it. In fact, I don't know many major Division I programs that don't go out to high school games during the season.
Please expand on that, because I can tell you, I get lit up like a Christmas tree whenever I try to go out and tell parents, don't panic, there's still time, college coaches will come to a high school game. And then I get about 5 million responses. There's never been a college coach that's ever gone to a high school game in the history of my tenure. And I said, well, maybe I'm missing something. So as long as you're with me on that, I'd love for you just to tell parents, yes, we do talk to high school coaches, and yes, we go to high school games.
So when we're in the summertime, when it's travel ball season and tournaments and showcases, when we're doing more the identification and we're trying to figure out who the players are, that's where the fish in the lake analogy comes in, because we're looking to see who the players are. When we're going out in the high school season, we know exactly who we're going to see. We're going to see one kid or two kids on one team, and it's much more, in the summer it's like throwing grenades, and in the high school season it's like sniper shooting. And so the high school coach, I think, is a absolute must have to talk to the high school coach. The high school coach knows the kid the best, and unsolicited advice to every kid and parent: don't bash the high school coach or the high school or the team. That's one of the worst looks that a kid can do, and it happens all the time. My coach isn't good, or da da da. As a college coach, you may not realize it, but then we think that you're going to say that about your college coach too, or parents who are maybe acting up obnoxious in the stands. College coaches think that's how you're going to act in their stadiums, and so I just say never. It's never a good look to talk negatively about the high school coach. But as a college coach, I always enjoy those conversations and building those relationships, learning from those guys as well. And then there's some high school coaches that have been around and are so established that they can almost tell us who we should go after, because they know what's a good fit for our program. They know what we're looking for. They have comparisons of who they've sent to other Division I schools in the past, and know what's going to work and what's going to fit. But absolutely talk to the high school coaches and talk to the travel ball coaches. We talk to everybody because we're trying to learn as much as we possibly can. Evaluating the physical ability is the easy part. That's easy. My wife can go hold the radar gun and click the stopwatch and see who hits the ball the hardest. The hard part is evaluating what's inside and what's between the ears and the character and the makeup, that if it's a good fit for the program and the culture that every program has. That's the tough part, and that takes the most amount of time. And a lot of times just talking to people who know these kids the best and what type of worker they are and what type of teammate they are and their leadership style. Those are all great questions to ask, and all very important for us as coaches to follow up on.
Well, Erik, I want to say a hearty thank you and a Merry Christmas for taking the time out of your schedule. I know this is exit meetings and student athletes coming and going, trying to get home for the holidays. So I greatly appreciate your time tonight. I'm going to be down there. As I mentioned, my stepdaughter, Sinclair McGovern, freshman at Clemson. So if you need any help, any director of operations, anything like that, she's an athlete. She was a high school athlete. I don't think she's doing anything other than club sports down there, but we'll be down there all spring. My wife and I will be down there. We'll put on the visors and the shorts and the coaching kicks and all that good stuff. But I want to say thank you to you. Anybody that wants to have access, if you have a question for Coach Bakich, I'll certainly forward it to him. As you heard, he's not overly active on social media. We just started a new app, by the way, Baseball Blue Book. If you want to kind of fill a profile out there for Clemson, go for it. So every Thursday night for the rest of 2022 and beyond, I'll be here. Next week, we have Brian O'Connor, head coach at University of Virginia. The week after that, I'm trying to work some things out with either Coach Bianco at Ole Miss or possibly Jim Foster at Northwestern. Erik, Merry Christmas to your entire family. I want to say thank you very much. Go Tigers. I'll have all my gear on when we come down. And I will talk to you. Are you going to Nashville, by the way?
Oh yeah, I'll be there, and I look forward to seeing you in Clemson. We'll have to upgrade your.
Yeah, we need the upgrade of the gear. I need a BP jacket and some good lids. I need a new lid, Clemson
well,
lid.
You can take your pick. I got a bunch back here. So
all right, well, I'll be in the office soon. All right, Captain. So I want to say thank you to everyone. Be sure and join us every Thursday. Make sure on TikTok and Twitter it's Baseball Lifer 11. Every Thursday night we're here, and on Tuesday evenings we do a free. No questions are no such thing as a silly question. All parents, all student athletes, all we talk about is high school, travel, and college baseball. Until next week, thank you, Erik. Good luck this season. I'll see you soon in Nashville.
Thanks, Walter. Merry
All right, bud.
Christmas. All right.
Merry Christmas, Captain.
Okay.
Bye now.
Thanks again. See ya.